I stood in the kitchen, the comforting aroma of simmering marinara sauce filling the air, but it did little to ease the knot tightening in my stomach. I stirred the pot absentmindedly, glancing at the clock on the wall. Jake should have been home by now. He had been working late more often, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. With every passing day, the distance between us seemed to widen, like an invisible chasm that neither of us knew how to bridge. "Mom," a bright voice broke through my thoughts, and I turned to see Lily standing in the doorway, her hair cascading in waves around her shoulders. The light from the setting sun framed her like a halo, and for a moment, it reminded me of simpler times when life felt less complicated. "Hey, sweetheart, how was school?" I asked, forcing a smile. I wanted to be the kind of mother who made every moment feel special, but lately, I felt like I was just going through the motions. "It was okay," she shrugged, her eyes darting away from mine. "I have a math test tomorrow and I'm freaking out about it." Her voice lacked its usual enthusiasm, and I could see the shadows of insecurity creeping across her face. "Do you want to go over some problems together? I can help," I suggested, hoping to draw her out of her funk. "Maybe later," she replied, her tone distant as she slid into a chair at the kitchen table. I watched as she pulled out her phone, scrolling through it with an intensity that made my heart ache. It was as if she was searching for something, or perhaps someone, to fill a void. "Lily," I began hesitantly, "is there anything you want to talk about? You know you can tell me anything, right?" She looked up, her brows knitted together in frustration. "I know, Mom, but it's just you and Dad are so busy. Sometimes I feel like I'm not even part of this family anymore." Her words hit me like a slap, and I felt a rush of guilt wash over me. I never wanted her to feel that way. "I'm sorry, honey. I've been caught up with work and everything, but you are so important to me. I promise I'll do better," I said earnestly, reaching out to squeeze her hand. "I love you, you know that, right?" "Yeah, I know," she replied softly, but I could see the doubt lingering in her eyes. I wanted to reassure her, to remind her that we were in this together, but the weight of my own struggles made it hard to find the right words. As the evening wore on, I prepared the dining room for our family dinner, trying to create a cozy atmosphere that would bring us all together. I lit candles and set the table with my best dishes, hoping that the warmth of a shared meal might melt away the tension that had settled in our home. When Jake finally walked through the door, I greeted him with a smile that I hoped masked my worry. "Hey, you made it just in time for dinner?" "Yeah, sorry I'm late. Work was crazy," he said, running a hand through his hair, his expression distracted. I could see the exhaustion etched on his face, but there was something else, an underlying tension that made my heart race. "Lily, and I made your favorite," I said, trying to lighten the mood. "I thought we could have a nice family night." "Sounds good," he replied, but his eyes flicked to Lily, who was now engrossed in her phone again. The connection between them felt strained, and I wondered if I had imagined it or if something deeper was going on. As we sat down to eat, I tried to engage in conversation, but it was like pulling teeth. Jake kept glancing at his phone, and Lily's silence was palpable. I felt my heart sink, a sense of foreboding creeping in as the evening wore on. Something felt wrong, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was on the verge of discovering a truth that would change everything. After dinner, I decided to surprise Jake with a romantic dinner in the backyard. I wanted to reignite that spark we once had, to remind ourselves of the love that had brought us together. As I stepped outside, a warm breeze caressed my skin, and I imagined how perfect the evening would be. But as I approached the patio, I froze, my breath hitching in my throat. There, in the soft glow of the fairy lights, stood Jake and Lily, locked in an embrace that sent shockwaves through my entire being. The world around me faded away, as disbelief and betrayal crashed over me like a tidal wave. I felt my heart shatter as I grappled with the reality of what I was witnessing, unsure of how I could ever face either of them again. The air in our bedroom felt thick with tension as I confronted Jake, my voice shaky but resolute. "You need to explain what I saw, Jake. I can't just let it go." He ran a hand through his hair, his eyes darting around, as if searching for an escape route. "Claire, it was a mistake. It was just a moment, nothing more. You have to understand." "A moment," I echoed, disbelief flooding my veins. "You were kissing our daughter, Jake. How can you possibly minimize that?" He stepped closer, his voice lowering almost to a whisper. "It was a misunderstanding. Lily was upset, and I was just trying to comfort her. You can't jump to conclusions." I felt my heart racing, a whirlwind of betrayal and confusion swirling inside me. Comfort her? By kissing her? The words tasted bitter as I spat them out. I wanted to scream, to shake him until he understood the gravity of what he had done. "It wasn't like that. You're twisting this into something it's not," he shot back, his defensiveness only fueling my anger. I turned away, feeling the walls of our life together closing in around me. The house that once felt like a sanctuary now felt like a cage, suffocating me with its memories. "Jake, I need time to think," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I walked out of the room, my heart heavy with the weight of his denial. The kitchen was empty, the dinner I had planned forgotten. As I sank onto the couch, the reality of the situation washed over me. I felt utterly alone. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, jolting me from my thoughts. It was Sarah, my best friend. I hesitated, but I needed someone to talk to. "Hey, Claire. How's it going?" she chirped, her voice bright and cheerful, completely contrasting my mood. "Not great, Sarah," I said, my voice cracking. I saw something that I can't explain, something that shattered my world." "What do you mean?" she asked, concern replacing her cheerfulness. "I saw Jake and Lily. They were kissing, and Jake is acting like it was nothing, like it was just a mistake." There was a long pause on the other end. "Oh, my God, Claire. Are you serious?" "I don't know how to process this," I admitted, tears pooling in my eyes. "It doesn't make sense. I feel so betrayed." "Listen," Sarah said, her tone firm but gentle. "You can't jump to conclusions without more information. You need to talk to Jake again, maybe even Lily. There might be something else going on." "Like what? What could possibly justify that?" I snapped, frustration bubbling to the surface. "Just promise me you'll look for answers before you decide anything." "You can't let this eat you alive," she urged. "Let's meet up tomorrow. We can talk more then." "Okay," I said, trying to steady my breathing. "Thanks, Sarah." As I hung up, a wave of isolation washed over me. I felt lost in my own home, a stranger to the people I loved most. The next few days were a blur of tension and unease. I started watching Jake and Lily more closely, trying to decipher their interactions. Jake seemed to have a different kind of energy about him. He was more distracted, his phone buzzing incessantly, often hidden from my view. Lily, on the other hand, was growing more secretive, slipping into her room and closing the door without a word. One afternoon, while Jake was in the shower, I picked up his phone from the kitchen counter, my heart racing as I questioned whether I should invade his privacy. But the urge to understand overwhelmed me. I swiped the screen, my hands trembling, and there it was, a message that made my stomach drop. "Can't wait to see you again. I miss our talks." I stared at the screen, the words burning into my mind. Who was he talking to? My pulse raced as paranoia seeped into my thoughts. The more I read, the more questions I had. I couldn't breathe. The door creaked open, and Jake stepped into the kitchen, a towel slung low around his waist. His eyes narrowed when he saw me with his phone. "What are you doing?" I froze, the phone slipping from my fingers as I tried to process the implications of what I had just discovered. I stammered, my heart pounding in my chest. "Claire, give me that," he said, reaching for his phone. Panic surged through me as I realized that the truth was slipping further from my grasp. "Who are you texting, Jake?" I demanded, the urgency in my voice rising. "You need to tell me the truth." He hesitated, and in that moment, I knew this was only the beginning of unraveling the tangled web of lies surrounding us. I decided to follow Lily that afternoon, my heart racing with a mix of dread and determination. I told myself it was just to ensure she was safe, that my concerns were simply a mother's instinct kicking in. As I parked a few blocks away from the cafe I had seen her enter, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was crossing a line I never thought I would. Peering through the large glass windows, I spotted her sitting at a small table, fidgeting with her dark hair, a boy across from her whose face was obscured by the sunlight streaming in. I squinted, trying to make sense of the scene. The boy leaned in closer, and Lily laughed, a sound that used to fill our home with joy. Suddenly, my heart sank. I recognized the boy, Alex, the one I had warned her about. I held my breath as I watched them. They leaned in closer, and for a moment, it felt as if time had stopped. Just as I prepared to turn away, Lily reached across the table and placed her hand on Alex's. I flinched, feeling as if I'd been punched in the gut. "What are you doing, Claire?" I whispered to myself, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. I knew I had to confront her, but how could I approach this without coming off as controlling? When I returned home, I felt a storm brewing inside me. I paced the living room, my mind racing with thoughts of what I had just witnessed. After what felt like hours, Lily came in, her cheeks flushed and her eyes bright. "Hi, Mom," she chirped, oblivious to the turmoil swirling within me. "Lily," I said, my voice steady yet strained. "Can we talk?" She hesitated, then nodded. We settled into the living room, the air thick with unspoken words. "I saw you at the cafe," I said, my heart pounding in my chest. Lily's expression shifted, panic flashing in her eyes. "You followed me?" "I was worried about you," I replied, trying to keep my tone even. "I just wanted to know what you were up to." "Why can't you just trust me?" she shot back, her voice rising. "I'm old enough to handle my own life." I felt the words cut deeper than I intended. "You're my daughter, and I care about you. That's why I'm asking." "Caring doesn't mean spying," she exclaimed, her hands throwing up in exasperation. "You don't trust me at all. You have no idea what I'm going through. Then help me understand," I pleaded, my frustration bubbling over. "Tell me who that boy is and what's going on. You're acting like I'm the enemy here." "Because you are," she yelled, tears brimming in her eyes. "You don't listen to me. All you do is hover and control everything. I need some space." The words stung, and I felt a wave of anger and heartbreak crash over me. "I'm not trying to control you, Lily. I just want to protect you from making mistakes. Like the mistake you made by marrying Dad." She shot back, her voice sharp. Her words hung in the air, and I felt the blood drain from my face. "That's not fair, Lily. You don't understand what's happening." She threw her hands up in frustration. "You don't understand me. You're too busy worrying about Dad to even notice that I'm struggling." The rift between us widened, and I could feel the distance growing. "I'm here for you, Lily. I just need you to share what's going on in your life. I want to help." But she just shook her head, her expression a mix of anger and hurt. "I don't need your help. I need you to trust me." With that, she stormed out of the living room, leaving me standing there, my heart heavy with regret. I had wanted to protect her, to guide her, but instead, I felt like I had pushed her further away. Later that night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that our confrontation had only scratched the surface of something much deeper. Just as I began to drift off, I heard Jake's voice from the other room, low and hushed. My curiosity piqued. I focused on the muffled conversation, straining to hear the words. "Yeah, I'll be there. Just make sure she doesn't find out," Jake said, his tone sending chills down my spine. I felt my heart race again, a knot tightening in my stomach. Who was he speaking to? What was he hiding? I wanted desperately to believe it was nothing, but the weight of my suspicions pressed down on me like a heavy blanket. As I lay there, staring into the dark, I felt as if my world was unraveling. The walls that once felt like a safe haven now felt like a cage, trapping me in a web of betrayal and confusion. I closed my eyes, hoping for sleep to come, but knowing that I was only beginning to scratch the surface of the truths that lay beneath. My heart raced as I slipped into the shadows of the parking lot, the chill of the night air sending shivers down my spine. I had followed Jake's car, my stomach twisting with anxiety. Each turn brought me closer to the truth I was desperate to uncover, yet terrified to confront. He had insisted with a fervor that felt rehearsed that he was working late, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something far more sinister was happening. As I parked a discreet distance away, I could see the dim glow of headlights illuminating the area. My breath hitched in my throat when I spotted Jake, leaning against the hood of his car, chatting animatedly with Alex, the very boyfriend I had seen Lily with at the cafe. My heart plummeted. I felt like a voyeur to a scene I was never meant to witness. "Are you sure she doesn't suspect anything?" Jake asked, his voice low but audible in the stillness of the night. I strained to hear every word, my heart pounding so loudly I thought it might give me away. "No way. She's too busy worrying about other stuff. Besides, she trusts you," Alex replied, a hint of cockiness in his tone. The word struck me like a physical blow. Trust? How could he think that when I had seen him kissing my daughter? "I just don't want to ruin everything," Jake said, and I could hear the strain in his voice. "I care about her. She's been through so much." The mention of Lily made my blood run cold. How could he even utter those words while standing there with Alex? My mind raced, piecing together the fragments of betrayal that had accumulated over the last few weeks. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of confusion and hurt. Suddenly, I couldn't stay silent any longer. I stepped out from my hiding place, the gravel crunching under my feet, and called out, "Jake!" Both men turned, their expressions shifting from surprise to fear. Jake's eyes widened, and for a moment, I could see the mask of confidence slip away. "Claire," he stammered, his voice laced with panic. "What is going on?" I demanded, my voice shaking but resolute. "Why are you meeting him here? Is this part of your work?" Jake opened his mouth to respond, but Alex interjected. "This is none of your business, Claire." I glared at him, feeling a surge of anger. "It is my business when my husband is meeting my daughter's boyfriend in secret." Jake took a step forward, his hands raised as if to calm me. "Claire, please, let's talk about this." "Talk? Is that what this is?" I gestured wildly between them, my heart breaking with each word. "How long has this been going on? Are you and Alex hiding something from me?" "Nothing is going on between us," Jake protested, glancing nervously at Alex, who seemed to be weighing his options. "We were just discussing some business matters." "Business matters?" I scoffed, disbelief flooding my veins. "What kind of business requires you to meet in a dark parking lot at night? And with my daughter's boyfriend?" Alex shifted uncomfortably, and I could see the cracks in Jake's facade. "Claire, listen," Jake began, but I cut him off. "Don't you dare try to deflect this. You've crossed a line, Jake. I saw you with Lily. You kissed her." The admission hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Jake's expression morphed from fear to something resembling guilt. "It wasn't what you think, Claire. I swear. It was a mistake, an emotional moment. It never crossed the line physically. An emotional moment, I echoed, my voice rising. What does that even mean? You kissed her, Jake. You made a choice to betray me, to betray our family. I didn't mean to hurt you, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, eyes pleading for understanding. It was a moment of weakness. I was trying to be there for her, to support her through everything she's dealing with. So your solution was to kiss her? What would you have done if I hadn't stumbled upon this? Would you have continued to lie to my face? Jake faltered, running a hand through his hair in frustration. I just wanted to protect her, Claire. She needed someone to listen to her, and I got too wrapped up in it. The weight of his confession crashed over me like a tidal wave, leaving me breathless. I felt torn between the man I had married and the father of my daughter, both of whom had shattered my trust. You don't understand the damage this has done, I said, my voice cracking. As I looked into Jake's eyes, I felt a mix of anger and sadness. I needed clarity. I needed to know what he really felt, what this meant for us and for Lily. But all I could see was a man who had let me down in ways I never thought possible. The days that followed the confrontation felt like a surreal dream, or perhaps a nightmare from which I couldn't awaken. I moved through the motions of life, a ghost in my own home, trying desperately to maintain a facade of normalcy for Lily's sake. The smell of freshly baked cookies wafted through the kitchen, the same recipe I had used countless times before, yet today they felt like ashes in my mouth. I glanced at the clock, counting down the minutes until Lily returned home from school. Mom, Lily called out as she stepped through the door, a backpack slung over one shoulder, and earbuds still hanging around her neck. I turned to her, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. Hey, sweetheart, I made your favorite cookies, I said, trying to sound cheerful. Her response was a nonchalant shrug, and she walked past me into the living room, oblivious to the turmoil that raged inside me. I followed, my heart heavy with unspoken words, wanting to bridge the gap that had widened between us. How was school? I ventured, nervously shifting my weight from one foot to the other. It was fine, she replied curtly, her gaze glued to her phone. The coldness in her voice pierced through me like a knife. I took a deep breath, the words I wanted to say swirling in my mind. Lily, can we talk? I finally asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She glanced up, annoyance flashing across her face. About what? You've been acting weird since, I flinched at her words, the reminder of that moment still fresh in my mind. It was as if the air itself thickened with tension. I just want to understand, I said, struggling to keep my emotions in check. Understand what? That you've been distant? That you didn't even notice how much I needed you? She shot back, her voice rising. The accusation stung, and I felt my defenses rise. Lily, I've been trying to hold everything together. Your father. Don't bring Dad into this, she interrupted, her tone sharp. You're the one who's been so wrapped up in him that you forgot I exist. I opened my mouth to respond, but the words caught in my throat. She was right, and that realization felt like a punch to the gut. I had been so consumed by my own pain and confusion that I hadn't seen my daughter's struggles. I'm sorry. I finally managed, my voice trembling. I'm really trying, but everything feels off. I'm scared, Lily. I don't know how to fix this. Lily's expression softened slightly, and for a brief moment, I saw the little girl I used to know. It's not just you, Mom. I'm scared too. I miss how things used to be, she admitted, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Just as I was about to reach out to comfort her, the front door creaked open, and Jake stepped inside, his presence instantly shifting the atmosphere in the room. I froze, my heart racing. He paused, taking in the tension that hung in the air like a thick fog. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. Lily shot me a pointed look, and I knew she was about to say something that would escalate everything. "Maybe you should ask Mom," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Claire." Jake turned to me, and I could see the worry etched on his face. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "I think we need to talk about what happened about us," I said, attempting to sound firm despite the quiver in my voice. "I don't know what you mean," Jake replied, but the unease in his eyes betrayed him. "Don't play dumb with me, Jake. We can't keep pretending everything is okay when it's not," I exclaimed, the frustration spilling out of me. Lily crossed her arms, watching as the tension escalated. "See, this is what I'm talking about. You both just argue and ignore what's really happening." "That's not fair, Lily," Jake said defensively. "We're trying to figure this out." "But you're not," she fired back, her voice rising again. "You both just keep pushing each other away." In that moment, a realization washed over me. My daughter was right. We had been avoiding the real issues, burying our heads in the sand as the storm brewed around us. "Maybe it's time we confront everything," I said, my voice steadying. "We need to be honest with each other. No more secrets." Lily nodded, her expression softening. "I just want us to be a family again," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake glanced at me, and for the first time in a long while, I saw a flicker of understanding in his eyes. "Okay, let's talk," he said, his tone more somber now. As we sat down around the dinner table, an unspoken agreement hung in the air. It was time to face the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Little did I know, this conversation would uncover more than just the fractures in our family. It would reveal the very essence of who we were and what we had become. I sat on Lily's bed, the weight of her journal heavy in my hands. The soft light from the lamp illuminated the pages, and I couldn't help but feel like I was intruding on her private thoughts. Each word seemed to echo in my mind, unraveling the threads of my perception about our family. As I read about her struggles with feelings of abandonment, a lump formed in my throat. How had I let things get this far? "Mom, are you in there?" Lily's voice broke through my thoughts, pulling me back to reality. I quickly closed the journal and placed it back where I had found it, my heart racing. I didn't want her to know I was digging into her private feelings, but the guilt of my actions sat heavily on my chest. "Yeah, just cleaning up," I called out, forcing a smile that I knew she couldn't see. I could hear her footsteps approach, and suddenly I felt like I was standing on a precipice, teetering on the edge of our fractured relationship. "Can I come in?" she asked, her tone a mix of curiosity and hesitation. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. As the door creaked open, I prepared myself for whatever confrontation awaited me. Lily stepped inside, her expression guarded. "What were you doing?" I hesitated, the words caught in my throat. "Just organizing your things," I managed to say. "Mom, you know that's my stuff, right?" she replied, crossing her arms defensively. "Of course, sweetie. I was just trying to understand you better," I said gently, wishing I could convey the depth of my concern without adding to her frustration. She sighed, a sound filled with exasperation. "You don't need to dig through my stuff to understand me, Mom. Maybe if you just talk to me instead of snooping." Her words stung, and I felt the sting of tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. "I'm trying, Lily. I really am," I said, my voice shaking slightly. Everything feels so out of control right now." Lily softened a little, the defensiveness fading. "I know things are weird, but I wish you would just trust me more." "I want to trust you," I replied, feeling the truth of my words. "But with everything that's happened with your father, it's hard. I don't know what's real anymore." Lily approached me, her expression shifting to one of concern. "What do you mean? What's real?" "I'm not doing anything wrong." I shook my head, feeling overwhelmed. It's not you, sweetie. It's your father and I just don't know how to fix this. She looked at me thoughtfully. Maybe you should talk to him. I mean, really talk. Not just argue. Her words hung in the air like a fragile thread, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of hope. You're right. Maybe I need to face him, to find out what's really going on. As we stood there in silence, a text notification from Jake's phone broke through my reverie. I felt a rush of anxiety as I glanced at the screen, my heart racing as I recognized the familiar number. I had been trying to prepare myself for this moment, but now that it was here, I felt like a deer caught in headlights. Mom, are you okay? Lily's voice pulled me back to the present. I quickly tucked my phone away, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. I'm fine, just a lot on my mind. Okay, but seriously, can we talk more? I don't want this to come between us. I need you, Mom, she said, her eyes searching mine for reassurance. I need you too, Lily. I promise I'll try harder, I said, feeling a surge of determination. Just then, another text from Jake arrived, this time with a request to meet at our usual spot. My heart sank, recognizing the gravity of the situation. Lily, I have to go, I said abruptly, my voice shaking. I need to talk to your father. Is everything okay? She asked, concern etching her features. I don't know, I replied honestly, glancing at the clock, but I have to find out. As I stepped out of her room, I could feel the weight of our conversation linger in the air. I quickly made my way to our usual meeting spot, my heart pounding with each step. What was Jake going to tell me? I sensed that whatever it was, it could change everything. When I arrived, Jake was already there, his expression grim. He held a letter in his hands, and my heart raced. Claire, you need to see this, he said, his voice heavy with an urgency that sent a chill down my spine. As I approached him, I realized that the truth was finally at hand, and with it came the fear of what it might reveal.